My name is Madison Jarman, and this is the Leaman Chronicles. So, most people call me Maddie. That's what I prefer to be called. I feel like when people call me Madison, I'm getting in trouble, which is so funny. And I am 25 years old. I live in Edson, Alberta, and I work in Hinton as a curator for a small museum there. Now, this podcast isn't about my life working there. It's more about my mom and what's been happening to her at her house. My mom lives on a quarter section of land near the small town of Wildwood in Alberta. It's about 45-minute drive from where I live. The house is set back off of the range road, and it opens up into this beautiful valley. There's a small creek that flows through the property, and on the opposite side of the creek from the house rises this huge ridge that goes way up. And from that ridge you get this spectacular view of the whole property, and you can't see anything else. Once you're inside the property, you don't know that there's neighbors around or that you're close to a town. It's completely secluded, and that's what makes that place so great. But over the last couple of months, my mom has been experiencing some strange things, and I'm using this podcast as a way to chronicle my experiments and my experiences with what she has been seeing and hearing and feeling at the ranch. Now, some of you may be familiar with a picture that my mom posted and I shared on Facebook a week ago. Maybe it was 2 weeks ago. It's a picture that was taken at night from the game camera. It's taken on the ridge in some thickly forested area, and the picture snapped what appears to be a humanoid figure. What's strange about this is that there was a picture taken before and a picture taken immediately after this one was taken on the game camera, and they show nothing. And this one in the middle has this white, ghostly humanoid figure, and it appears that he's pointing, or it is pointing at something. Now, there are so many scientific explanations for what this could be. It could be a smudge on the lens, or a flicker, or a bug, or a leaf, who knows. But the strange thing is that the picture taken immediately before and immediately after have nothing. And if it was merely a smudge on the lens, the camera wouldn't have triggered. I'm not sure. So after my mom showed me this picture, it was a couple days before she posted it on Facebook, she had gotten to the point where she was scared enough to share that with me. That there had been a series of weird occurrences that had happened, and that was a tipping point for her to actually think that something was wrong. Now, before I continue on with that story, I want to share with you a story that my family has told many people over the years, and it happened many years ago. Halloween, when I was in grade 4. And my mom, she always is amazing and goes above and beyond her motherly duties. And on this Halloween, she decided that she was going to make me a haunted house. Now, where we had lived previously to my family moving to this ranch by Wildwood is this old prairie farm just northeast of where Irricana is, which is near Calgary, Alberta. This farm, it was a heritage farm. It had this beautiful hip roof barn, and it had this older farmhouse on it, and then 2 new ones were added later on. But this property also contained the Carbon Trail, which was used to get settlers to the town of Carbon. And it was also the site of a railroad at one point in time. It has since been taken up. This railroad, during its construction, used this giant hip roof barn at the turn of the 20th century as a place to house its workers at night when they slept up there in this barn. And then during the day, they would go and work on the tracks. Many of the workers on this railway were immigrants, and they left their families, or maybe they had no one left to go to. But when they were working on the railroad, nobody really knew where they came from or who they belonged to, which is really important to this story. Because one of those railway workers drowned in the creek that flowed through that property, along with his dog. And I'm not sure if the dog jumped in after him or if he jumped in after his dog to save him, but either way, they both died and were buried somewhere on the property. Now, during this Halloween party, my mom had cleaned out this old farmhouse, which we had been using for storage, and she had made each of the rooms themed. So there was an operations room, and there was kind of the morning room, and a disgusting kitchen. And I invited all of my friends to come, and we all got dressed up, and we went through this haunted house, and it was spectacular, and we had so much fun. And the next day, when we were cleaning up that house, in the middle of the first room, where there had been the most amount of traffic, was this mask sitting face up in the middle of the floor. And at first my mom thought that this mask had been left behind by one of my friends. But it was covered in this thick film of dust, like it had sat there for decades and decades. And when she picked up the mask, it was a hard plastic mask, and it had a old woman's face on it, and she was wearing bright red lipstick, and she was smoking a cigarette. And on the back of the mask was an Eaton sticker, and I think it was 5 cents, this mask. It was in great condition, didn't have a lot of scratches or anything on it. It was just really dusty. My mom took this mask, didn't think any more into the situation, and brought it into her house with the rest of the Halloween decorations from the old house that the haunted house was in. Now, as time went on, my mom started to experience things and see things. Beside the old red barn, the big hip roof barn, was an old waterer. And so it's a pipe that sticks out of the ground, and then at the top of this pipe is a crank. And you have to lift up the crank all the way over, and then the water will come out. And I remember growing up that this was so difficult to pull up. It took every ounce of my muscle to lift this crank up. And my mom repeatedly found this crank open, and the water would be gushing onto the ground. And the first couple of times she thought that she had left it on, although I don't know why she would have left the water on and then just walked away with it gushing on the ground. And maybe we thought some animal had pulled it, which seems very highly unlikely, but maybe. As time went on, though, she really started to think that there had to be something more to what was happening here. In the house that we lived in, she started to get these cold chills up her spine. And she just felt as if she was being watched by someone. And when she looked outside from the house that we lived in to the old house where we had the haunted house in, she would see the lights turn on and on, off and on. And sometimes she would walk out to the old house to turn the light off, and it would turn off when she walked to the door. And this very well could have been a short circuit, or maybe, the light wasn't totally turned on. There's so many explanations. But what is weird is that there was a series of coincidences that were all piling up in this moment. Now, with the water being turned on and my mom getting these chills and the lights flickering, she was very scared, and she asked my uncle, who was a pastor, to come out and to bless the house, to bless the older farmhouse, in hopes that this would get rid of whatever was there. When he came out, he took the mask with him and he went into the house, and I don't know what he did in there. I remember seeing him go in, and he was in there for a couple of minutes, and he came out and he took the mask with him, and I'm not sure what he did. I still to this day have no idea what he did with it. He probably just threw it out. But my mom was relieved, and she didn't hear anything else after that. And so that's really important, because after that, my mom didn't see anything, didn't experience anything for a decade, more than a decade. And when we moved up here, she didn't see anything or hear anything, except in the last couple of months. And I'm not sure what has changed for her or what has changed on that property. So after my mom showed me that picture that we shared on Facebook, she started to tell me about something that she was hearing in the woods around the site where the picture was taken. And she would go and take the dogs for a walk like she would usually do. She would bring 4 dogs, 2 large working dogs and 2 hunting dogs with her. Ruby, Remy, Nora, and Baloo. And she would hear this screaming sound, very deep screaming sound. And the dogs would all turn and run towards whatever this was. And she would call them back, and they would all come back except for Remy. And she would continue to call him, and he just wouldn't come. And finally she would have to find him, and he would be at the spot where the game camera was, just laying on the ground, looking up into the open space where the game camera would have been taking pictures. And she would eventually have to take him by the collar and drag him away from that location. And this isn't something that happened once or twice. It's happened 3 times to her and Remy, and only Remy. Although all the times that she heard this low screaming sound, all of the dogs would run. But Remy would stay and lay down in spot and look up. My mom scanned the trees meticulously, looking for any sign of a squirrel or a bird. The chances of an animal being in the same tree or the same location each time that she heard this low screaming and Remy came, laid down, and looked up at that location, it's pretty slim. But it could happen. And this is what I've been telling my mom. It's just a coincidence. These are all a series of coincidences. And not to think more into it. She thinks I'm an idiot. She thinks that I am being far too closed-minded to not believe in the supernatural, in ghosts, paranormal, that there is more out there to the world than just what I see and what I know. It's brought on some interesting conversations between us, that's for sure. It's got my brother, Levi, totally freaked out. He won't go and walk the dogs anymore. He just kind of, stays at home. And when I was his age, I would have been totally afraid of seeing that picture. Levi's 17 now. He's in grade 12. I would have been afraid. Even talking about it, I'm a little afraid, and I don't even really believe. It's strange. It's very, very strange. So I decided that I was going to do my own investigation in the area and pull the whole ghost hunters, ghost adventurers thing, which they are the worst actors, and they are not very convincing at all. And the things that they do, I think, are ridiculous. However, I am going to walk out into the woods and I'm going to do an EVP session. And we'll see how it goes. Okay guys, so I'm walking through the woods and it's dusk, so it's not quite pitch black outside, but it's dark. I do have a flashlight. I have my phone with me. That's what I'm recording off of. And I've asked my mom to keep the dogs at home. They're locked up. I'm just out here by myself, which is walking alone in the woods at night is kind of creepy. I'm not gonna lie. I'm just getting creeped out being here. It's kind of weird. Who knows what's gonna pop out? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna walk to the location where supposed things have been happening, and just record what I hear. Yeah, so I'll get back to you when I get there. Hey guys, so I'm at the clearing where Remy has been stopping and laying down, and where the picture was taken. I'll just kind of describe what it looks like. So the clearing itself is like 20 feet in diameter, and then there's a trail that goes from the clearing to the south, and the trail is probably 10 feet in diameter, and it just keeps going back. And then there is a small trail, an animal trail to my, well, I guess to the northeast, and another one to the northwest. Most of the forest around me is young aspens, very, very close together, which I think makes this a little more creepy because you can't see anything through the trees. It's so dense in here. To the west, there is this old pile of wood. I think it's probably from this trail was cleared at some point in time, and the woods were just stacked. The logs were just stacked there, so they're old and kind of rotting. You can't really see past them because of all of the aspen. The stars are beautiful. They're all coming out right now. There's kind of one cloud up there. No moon. Yeah, it's quiet. It's very quiet. And I don't hear anything. Not that I know of. I'm gonna wait here a couple more minutes and probably head back down to the house just 'cause it's super creepy up here, and I don't know. Yeah, I'll get back to you guys. So I walked back down the hill, got to my parents' house, and my mom was really anxious to hear if there was any recordings on my phone, and I didn't want her to hear anything. I didn't want her to interpret that, oh yes, the rustling of the trees is a ghost saying yes, or something like that. I know so frequently on Ghost Adventurers, they come up with crazy things that sound like other things on there. So I don't want anybody else, and I don't want to freak my mom out anymore. She doesn't need that. So I drove back to my place and I replayed the sound. And you guys probably heard it. You probably heard some weird sounds. And when I was there, I heard nothing. It was so quiet. It was so quiet. These sounds could just be something wrong with my recorder, my recording device, my phone. I don't know. I don't think anything is wrong with it. It does sound like a person talking. It really does. I don't know if I was tuning into another frequency. Is that a thing on a phone? I don't think so. It does sound like words. It really does. But it's nothing that I can understand. It just sounds like gibberish to me. I'm gonna look into this further, and yeah, I'll get back to all of you guys on what I come up with and some other interesting finds I've discovered with the ranch. Thank you so much for tuning into the Leaman Chronicles. The Leaman Exchange is a family-run business on Range Road 110 near Wildwood, Alberta. And it is a bunch of different things. We are doing actually a Halloween festival. And we're having a haunted house and a rope maze and hay rides and bonfire and carnival games and petting zoo and a whole bunch of other stuff. And we'd love to see you guys out there, even just to come talk to us about ghosts. And whether you believe or not, I don't know, I'm freaked out. Not even because I believe, but just kind of creeped out. Thanks so much for listening to the Leaman Chronicles, and until next time.